Hello, everyone. This is JVL here with my best friend, Sarah Longwell, publisher of the Bulwark. Happy Friday, Sarah.
Happy Friday, my man.
We have a bit of a meta episode, a show where we're going to talk about us and our relationship,
our favorite subject,
with our audience, and we're going to get into that and I'm going to use you as my rabbi. How you like that? Later on, because I'm going to need you to help me be a better person. I need you to help me do good.
Oh, yeah. Cool.
Yeah. But let's start out with nuclear war. So the Iran is happening.
It's not funny.
No, I mean, it's all gallows humor.
Yeah.
And I find it very hard to care. I understand it's a war. I understand that Iran getting nuclear weapons is a very serious issue. And that, whatever happens, people will die. This is a matter of life and death and all that. And yet, I have no agency in any of this, and none of us have any agency in any of this. And the Republicans have unified control of government. Okay. Well, they wanted to be in charge for crisis. They don't have to listen to anybody except for themselves. And so let's see how it shakes out, is my general view. Is that too nihilistic?
I think on one hand, we all, probably should care about this. I think these are things of enormous consequence. On the other hand, your point about whether or not we have any role to play in this is a correct one, right? Like, this is essentially a struggle session between the isolationist faction of the MAGA movement and this
super Israel hawk movement.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And the problem is that Trump has made promises to both, but he built his coalition on he campaigned on it because he knew that there's a reason Tulsi Gabbard is the DNI, right? Like, and JD Vance sort of represents this side of the movement, which is, and Trump built his political career on sort of two things. One, hawkishness on immigration. Two, he wasn't for the Iraq war. Going after sort of the Bush era foreign policy is MAGA canon at this point. Yeah. Right. And so, he went after Jeb Bush on the stage. That was one of the things that kind of catapulted him. And then he leaned into that. Really, actually.
Remember when we all thought that was the end of his campaign?
Yeah, I know, right?
That was item number 37 in the, he's finished now. Yeah.
I don't know if I thought that was what finished him, but I did think that he was out of step with the Republican base on that type of thing. But of course, I was both incorrect about that, which is why I do focus groups, because I clearly had lost the thread on who the Republican Party was. And then he also changed the party, right? He brought new people in. And so your Joe Rogan and your Theo Vaughn and your young people who are into Trump, and this is actually, I wanted to ask you this, because this is, I'd say, in your and my longest standing disagreements, one is about people, okay? And sort of whose responsibility is it to navigate the information environment and make good decisions? And is it a leadership problem? Is it a voter problem? Chicken or egg, right? And so we can have that debate endlessly. I would say the other thing you and I kind of disagree about is that you think policy doesn't matter very much. And you can push back from mischaracterizing, but I think it matters quite a bit. And I think that Donald Trump's effectiveness has been, in some ways, there's a little bit of the cruelty's the point, but the idea of him being incredibly dovish, saying he's going to use sort of peace through strength and, we are going to stop all these wars. We're not going to get into these wars. That brought a real, true believing part of a coalition to him. That was a policy promise that people thought they could take to the bank. And so this idea that it sort of doesn't matter what Trump does, or that it won't impact, and normally I agree with this assessment that normally Trump making a decision doesn't fracture his voters because they'll kind of go oftentimes where he wants to go. This is one where I think that's much less true because I think a bunch of the red-pilled audience came to him in part on this issue specifically.
I don't know. So certainly a bunch of the low info audience came to him, right? There are a bunch of people who never voted for who came to him late. But within the Republican electorate, I mean, there were people who were defending George W. Bush on, year 7 of Barack Obama's term and who were insisting on, this stuff is important, muscular foreign policy, et cetera, et cetera. And all of those people flipped to Trump by the convention, And it isn't like these people were 12 years into American foreign policy and then suddenly decided, oh, geez, we've made a terrible mistake. Because there were never any mea culpas in this, right? It was never like, oh, boy, our worldview's got to be reexamined, et cetera. It was just that stuff never happened. You won't believe how fast that stuff never happened, where, we're just with this guy. And I think that tells me that they never believed in the foreign policy stuff to begin with. They were only there because George W. Bush was there and they were wearing the jersey at that time, Sort
of. So this is a difference between Trump 1.0 and Trump 2.0 that I think matters quite a bit. Trump 1.0 was predicated on the idea that he was throwing out red meat, the boob bait for Bubba types, and that the foreign policy establishment was like, it's okay. Mattis will be in there. These guys will be in there so we can support him. And Trump did. Trump
didn't actually pull out, right?
So I think that Trump is actually pulled between two competing impulses in himself, which is he knows he built a base on rhetoric against forever wars, especially in the Middle East. On the other hand, he loves being a tough guy. When they shot Soleimani down like a dog, he loved that. He loves being at the center of maybe I'll bomb the shit out of somebody. And so I think that he does but Trump 2.0 has a cabinet now filled with people who will do the thing that he said he's going to do. And so I do think that those foreign policy people who flipped, I don't know. I think there is a real rift now in ways that there wasn't before.
Yeah, I guess I agree with that completely. I just think that that's mostly at the elite level. I think that's mostly at the level of Twitter influencer and people wanting to run in 2028 for president. At the level of voters, I mean, I've looked at the polling too, and the polling is actually pretty bad for Trump on this stuff. But that's because it hasn't happened yet. Once he makes a decision either way, I feel pretty sure that 90% of the Republican base is just going to be like, yes, this was the right choice. This was art of the deal. This is negotiation. Whatever that choice is, whether he drops a tactical nuke or decides to do nothing, but say we're in another 2-week pause and we're working on a deal, they'll just go with him.
Maybe this is who I think he loses.
These mouth breathers they didn't believe in democracy promotion. They just said they did.
Sure.
They didn't believe in, Barack Obama is, again, if these people were such peaceniks, why weren't they with Obama? And they don't believe in the isolationism stuff either. They're just there for the entertainment value and they're there for the team.
Yeah, I agree with that about a certain set. The Theo Vaughns and the Joe Rogans and that, I think there's a lot of people in that category. These are the people that I talk about being red-pilled. They were basically Dems that Trump brought into the party. There's two places where Trump has really created democratic alignment with himself. One is with the MAGA movement, and the other is on foreign policy. And that has allowed him to expand a coalition and left Democrats in, I think, a little bit of a, nervous breakdown kind of place, or an identity crisis kind of place. Because they're like, wait, if we're not the ones against war, or if Trump's against wars, but also there's real politic to be done here. The Democrats were just trying to be grown-ups. And Trump is a child with no. I was on NPR this morning on Morning Edition. I had to wake up very early. The host was like, "Well, who is Trump listening to? Like what, or what is Trump going to do?" And I was like, "Well, Trump has no real like center locus on this. No like moral or nothing's anchoring him. And so who's he listening to? A little bit of everybody." Like, he does listen to those loud online influencers like Laura Loomer, but he also, he kind of also wants to bomb things, or wants to be like, I took out Iran's nuclear weapon. I made the great deal. And so he's got attention on his hands that is real, in my opinion, that I think there's only a couple issues where I think he can really lose people. And I think this is one of them.
So what is funny here is that he's actually checkmated by Netanyahu, because I would propose to you that Trump's ideal end state is that he declares victory, says that he's just made the greatest deal ever with Iran, and that they are stopping their work on the bomb. The Iranians pretend to stop their work on the bomb. He is happy to allow them to pretend that, so long as this, gets kicked, the can gets kicked down the road after him, and this all goes away, and he's like, "Look, I already dealed it again. Yeah, bitches." The problem is that the Israelis can't go along with the kabuki theater, right? Iran would be willing to play that game, and Trump would absolutely be willing to play that game, but the Israelis aren't, and they are hell-bent on pushing this. And so he's then trapped with, can he just make Bibi shut up and go away? I think the answer is no. And so he's boxed in a little bit by Netanyahu in ways that I think probably drive him insane. And I'm certain that the Israelis are trying to figure out how to play him. And it's not that hard, right? You just keep flattering him and making him look like he's making all the decisions. But Trump must realize that he's getting boxed in by these people, right? And that he can't do his move, because his move would be just declare victory and kick everything down the road.
Now we have 2 weeks. We have another 2 weeks. He has put his magical 2-week holding pattern on things. But your point about Israel is actually a good one. And I will say, from focus group stuff, or just listening to. I'm sorry, I don't mean. I just mean, as we debate back and forth, like that is a good point that I believe is true, and the Israel of it all matters because there's a lot of, I think, especially the evangelical voters who vote for Trump, who agree that we should have no foreign wars unless it means supporting Israel. Like, there is kind of an Israel carve out for also a certain type of Republican voter that I think probably is equally large, though maybe not quite as loud in this moment, that balances out with the red-pilled peaceniks.
Yeah, but then on the other hand, there is a segment of that coalition which hates Israel.
Yeah.
And, that segment it's not huge. Like, it's not 40% of the coalition, but I don't know, maybe it's 10 or 15% who really does hate and thinks that the Jews control everything. And that part of what went wrong with the Republican Party was that the Jews had them, dancing and blah, 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 blah. So there's that too. It's a weird, the extent to which Trump is able to hold that together really is pretty amazing and impressive, to keep both the white supremacists who hate Israel and the Jews and the evangelical Christians who think that we should do whatever the Israelis ask us to do whenever the Israelis ask it. And he keeps them both on side and both thinking that he's with them.
Until there's like a legitimate action. So I guess my question for you, because I don't know the answer to this at all, is what does Trump do in this? I mean, he kicks the can and hopes events make it so he can taco and do the thing that you said earlier, right? Is like Israel does something and they take out something important. Trump claims credit for it. They have talks and get Bibi to walk things back a little bit. Trump takes credit for that. I think you're right that he's just going to try to look for a win, whatever the win is, and it matters not as much to him.
And again, the intractable problem here is, if this was something the Israelis could do by themselves, which is taking out the final underground nuclear site, then Trump would be okay, because he could just sit back and let the Israelis do it, and he could say, "See, I didn't do anything." But the problem is, the Israelis, I think, from what I can tell in reading about the stuff, which is no more sophisticated than anybody listening to this is reading the same things I am.
Right.
The problem is that the Israelis seem to need some technical help. And so he'll have to make some decisions. And what he would like to do, ideally, is not make any decisions, but just let everything sort itself out and then take credit after the fact. It's great.
Yeah, I think that's
this is how you run an empire. This is really something. Okay, so you and Tim and me, to a lesser extent, took a lot of incoming fire this week from listeners, readers, people on Reddit, comments in YouTube. I want to preface this by saying, hey fam, it's JVL. This is the secret show that Sarah Longwell, my best friend in the entire world, and I do every Friday, and now on Mondays too. It's a very special bonus extra secret show. We're just two best friends talking about the absolute end of democracy in America. I mean, what could be more fun than that? If you want to hear the rest of the show, though, gotta subscribe. Come and support us at the Bulwark. We're all in this together.